All right, good evening, folks. This is the High-Speed Internet Subcommittee meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Time is 6:00 PM. And we're in the Select Board Conference Room here at Town Hall at College Highway in Southwick. This meeting is being recorded and it's being held in a hybrid fashion, especially with the weather tonight. Thank you all for coming. If anyone is recording the meeting is being recorded, and if anyone else is recording the meeting, that certainly is your right. Just let Ian know. So we don't have much of an agenda tonight, other than I wanted to report back to the board in public what came out of the select board meeting from 2 weeks ago, which was exactly what we asked for. So the good news is they agreed with our vote to proceed with Whip City Fiber, and then send it right back to us to craft the either IGA, IMA, whatever you want to call it. I did have a conversation with Mr. Sullivan this afternoon, and he has a draft IGA, IMA that he's going to send to us either by the end of this week or early next week. One of the things I would like to do is to have, and this is where Mr. Johnson comes in, is put together a smaller committee of this group that could meet to kind of hammer out the bones of an IMA, so that we can then come back to this board and send it right back to the select board to get it put together and on ice. He's got a bunch of them. We have some of them. He's got a model one for us. That's going to be, I believe, kind of similar to what he's done in other communities. So, but from, I would take some input from folks on who would want to be on that, and if we can keep it under a quorum so that you guys can meet and discuss and do what you need to do for the IMA, and then come back to the board and report your discussions and, do all the other piece of it in public. But, I think just a smaller group would be a good move to try to get that done. Before we get too far ahead, let's do a roll call real quick. Jessica Bishop. Ian Creswell.
Here.
Jim Crowley.
Here.
Marlene Quinlan.
Here.
Tom Kolick. Bob Boyd. Here. James Johnson.
Here.
Christopher Boyd.
Here.
Ryan Peace.
Here.
Jason.
Moving his vehicle.
Okay.
That's right.
He's here, but he had to run out for a second. He said he was going to step out, and Doug Moglen is here. Okay. So I just want to get that out of the way and get that on the record so she can do the minutes. So any thoughts or comments on who should be on that group to review the IMA? I think this would be quite a technical challenge, and then the contractual challenge. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, definitely Jim for his contract knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be happy to be part of it.
How many other agreements will we have to look at?
Well, we have the 3 or so that we have already, and Mr. Sullivan's going to present, and the one that Mr. Sullivan's going to send us from Whip City.
Okay. Do we have any other, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think we can get plenty of examples, because most towns that have already contracted with Westfield have those documents listed publicly.
Right.
Wanted to refer to anything else?
Because typically, Doug, on these kind of agreements, this is is there a restriction on dissemination of information? Or
Far as. No, not in particular. I mean, it's once the agreement is signed and executed, it becomes a public document because it's an intermunicipal agreement. So,
Right.
I mean, obviously part of contract negotiation is contract negotiation. That's why you do a little bit of a smaller group. But And it also just facilitates, if you guys want to get together on a Tuesday afternoon and have a quick phone call amongst two or three of you. It's not a quorum of the board, so it doesn't pose a problem for the open meeting law and it can we can move along expeditiously. If not, you have to post 72
Okay,
hours and have a meeting and reporting and everything else. And it's a work group because you won't be executing a contract, right? You're just going to bring something back to this board to discuss in open session in a meeting, and it's all publicly available information. And then it goes to the select board. And then when the contract is actually executed, well, then it becomes, anyone can get a copy of it via public record request.
We can even review and comment if it was delivered to us in Word.
Yeah,
That's a great function of it, so everyone gets a chance to
correct.
go
And,
around.
but what you need, you can't
comments.
disseminate it to the greater board, right?
Sure.
So if you guys are gonna be like a little subcommittee
Yeah.
of the contract to come back to the board, you guys can do it, but you can't send it to everybody, because then
Gotcha.
you start running afoul of all kinds of things. And that's not the point of this. The point of this is to be open and transparent, the way we've been doing all this.
Mhm.
The point is also, we also have to keep moving along to get to the point where we have an agreement in principle to move ahead, because, well, frankly, the poll work's gonna take, it's gonna be the longest poll in the tent, no pun intended. But, we gotta get moving.
Yes.
You're years
Right.
from once you say go, and we haven't said go, so we wanna try
Just
to.
letting you guys know I'm back.
Okay, welcome back. We missed you.
So what you're saying is you're officially here now, Jason.
I am officially here now, yes.
It's on record.
And I had even had some thoughts on the contracts wanted to discuss with the board is if we were to break it into two contracts, one for design and construction services, with the intent that that's a document that's gonna have a specific start and end. We'd be able to get that off the ground sooner, I think, because there'd be a lot of language we could take from existing contracts. And then another contract where that would be the actual network operation and ISP services. That's something I think it might take us a little longer. We're gonna wanna look at, quality of service type requirements. Maybe even, want to spend a little time talking about the technology to use, things like that, it's going to take longer, I think, to go through it and, have an agreement between us and Westfield versus just the construction and design services. I think that would be, quicker to execute and get it moving with the poll apps, being the goal to get those moving ahead. So I thought I'd put that out there, just some thoughts I had.
Makes sense. I actually think that if you had a contract like that there would almost be like a Schedule A or a second agreement is the network itself, because that's the unique part of it.
Yeah.
Town by town, city by city, right? Ours is gonna be different than Westfield's gonna be different than anywhere else,
There's gonna
because,
be some nuances and.
So the contract for the design is gonna be different, and then.
Yeah.
Even if we have to look at the equipment stuff and all that, but I mean, as far as, they have this many poles and they're laid out in this fashion because it's Southwick, right? Versus some other
And
town.
the service contract, that would be the one that we would live with and
Yeah.
renew and edit over years, as it comes up for renewal.
Yeah, the
That would be
network's
the
once,
living one,
right?
that wouldn't have language or content in it relating to the construction. I mean, I think there's gonna be a period of time where you'd have the construction ongoing, there'd be some services that are active in town for some parts that are built, but as revenue comes in, then we'd wanna, start saying, okay, let's go to this area and.
But they'd basically be running on two separate contracts.
Yes, yeah, that way one can be, specific for those design and construction services. And I think we could get that off the ground faster.
Well, what did other towns do? I mean, I'm sure that we're not the only town that faced or is facing this situation where, so have other towns, done this, and what did it look like?
Yeah, some towns, like the example we have from West Springfield, that's one single agreement that encompasses, design services, project management, and also, building and administering a pilot area in certain areas. So it's got all the performance, indicators that have to be followed, bandwidth to provide, and it's got all the pieces in it. Other towns I've seen, in the past have a specific one for each service. So it's really in however we want to do it, or if there's any requirements from the town of Southwick itself and how, they would like to execute agreements like this.
Well, I guess that one of the key things would be before we did anything is that how did the town want to proceed? Is it, do they want one agreement or two agreements? When they do stuff, what is their standard operating procedure?
Well, I can honestly tell you, in my vast history and experience in the town of Southwick, we've never done one for municipal internet. So I think this board actually has a lot of latitude in that as far as what we think is the best approach to skinning this cat as far as getting it done. I kind of see it like, the way it was presented was, hey, maybe we'll have take a look at it where the design build agreement is one agreement because we want to get that, that design build started, but then the rest of it, I think the pole piece is going to be important. And Mr. Sullivan's on, so I can kind of put him on the spot is, Brian, what do you see from other towns that you've negotiated IGAs or IMAs with for this type of scenario?
And so far, everything everyone has said is examples of everything that's been done. So you're right. And the way I think, Mr. Chairman, if I get it right with the way the town has voted is, one, you wanted to be an MLP. So that's the global vote that everyone said, yes, let's do it. Your second vote was more about the bonding money and what to do it. And where that fits is exactly what you're talking about, is kind of the phase 1, phase 2 area. We'll call it engineering, design, and field survey work, and make-ready work rolls into that piece that you've appropriated, the $3 million bond and whatever other, financial pockets you have to use from. From that, as you're building up, then you'll go to your construction and your ISPNO area. And, hopefully Westfield Gas and Electric, Whip City Fiber is that person there, but it can all be eventually one contract, but you can start with the phases. And like I said, honestly, a couple towns have done it that way. West Springfield at the time was, let's go, we're ready to build this, we're all in. The hill towns were more like that, but there was an awful lot of state funding that was tied to that too. So they were in a different spot than Southwick is. So we're prepared. What I'd like to propose to you by the end of the week or early next is that phase 1, phase 2 approach with the engineering, the design, the field services, the field surveys, the make ready work. And that's going to take a while. So you'll have time for the next pieces as they come.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we'd have, time to work on the second contract, which is really to operate it. And yeah, it would almost be like, having a capital contract to put a road in, and then a separate contract for someone to maintain and make sure the road works, and, something like that.
I think it really depends on how fast we can move, and judging by history, it's not very fast.
Right. And it might also, part of the data we're hoping to get, in my conversation with Mr. Sullivan this afternoon was, is a kind of an update on the financial piece of it and kind of an estimate. Obviously, until we kick off the design work and really get into the full hearings, we're not going to have concrete numbers, but they've done this enough that they're going to be, gut shot close. I want to say, I'll put Brian on the spot, but plus or minus $1 million. I don't know, maybe, but and it seems crazy to throw that kind of money around, but that's in the scale of what we're talking. But from what we can figure out is based on the $900,000 we have And then the borrowing authority for $3 million, where does that get us? And then, where does that put us? Does that put us to design build? Does that put us to through the poll hearings and start some construction and start bringing up our first couple of neighborhoods before we have to go back to the well?
Should be able to, yeah, ideally, and get some revenue coming in to subsidize the new areas and, yeah.
Correct. I mean, that's why I'm so excited that you guys are on this committee, because you guys can speak to it a lot better than I can or anyone else on, that can kind of get a feel for it and understand what's going to be involved as we embark on this endeavor. So, and then we got our contracts guy. So excited.
Yeah, and I think if we go with the two, like I'm proposing is, you can take one example that, Brian can send us, and then we can basically make 2 copies of it and then just take out the parts that wouldn't relate to one or the other and kind of work from there. They'll have some common, components to it. We don't want to get too fancy with having a master services contract and then different ones to work under it. I don't think we need to do that, but, at least have one can relate to the other and refer to that down the line.
Now, on the design of the network itself and then the build of the network itself, that's 2 separate pieces, I know, but how does that usually work? Does that work where we, through the IGA, where Whip City would become like the project manager and they would actually do the contracting with the designer and the builder of the network?
Yeah, so Westfield would facilitate that. They would, I believe they have a design shop that they work with already, so they would facilitate that. For the construction piece, they would help us create a bid, prepare it, send it out. If I recall right, I think they'd even, have bids come in and administer that and, with us in the loop. And then when it's time to start building, whoever, gets that bid, then can start working on getting it constructed.
I'm sorry, someone was going to speak. Brian?
That wasn't me, but
Oh, sorry, Mr. Johnson?
I was just wondering, by using our WG&E, Westfield Gas and Electric, are there any, where does the whole idea of arm's length come into this? If they are the person doing all the coordinating, et cetera, and they're the people who are actually doing the work, is there a precedent for that so we don't later on, just as we're about to roll this thing out, pardon me, is that no one can say there's no arm's length? Is that that's important in contracting, is that being able to establish arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
With meaning us being at arm's length of Westfield executing the.
Well, essentially, Westfield doing all the coordination and all of that, and then the contract is awarded to Westfield. Is there a danger? I mean, I don't know enough about this. I've never worked with town governments. But
Oh, do you mean if they were to actually build it for us themselves and also manage it?
yeah,
Okay, so they wouldn't construct it for us physically. There would be a fiber construction company that would have to bid for it within criteria that we agree on with Westfield, that we'd want to see awarded in a bid. And then they would essentially administer our wishes through the bid and also oversee the construction services.
okay.
So they
Just-
would, they would
just
be
so,
our agent essentially, and project manager. and
Yeah, I
that
was
would-
just gonna say project manager, right?
that's exactly, agent's probably a good word. Just so you know, the IGA would be between Westfield Gas and Electric and Southwick. But anything that needs third-party vendors, we have to follow the bidding laws just as everybody else. So
Yeah.
we would be doing that, and you're absolutely right. With you, we would be doing that for you. Get the 3 bids, all that stuff has to be done in the IGA. So
Okay.
we're working on your behalf to do that. Some things Whip City Fiber can do, but the technical parts where we would need the construction companies and things like that, we would send that out to a bid.
Okay,
Basically capital services, or well, not service, capital construction
Right.
and spending. Yeah.
And I also think that there's a bit of a precedent, even within our own IMAs between us and, our neighbor to the north, is we just regionalize a dispatch, right? And so part of that regionalization was, there is a whole contract for a radio system. So there's a lot of parallels to it. So I think
Yeah.
we can get a copy of that IMA too,
That would be good.
for this group, as just kind of use it as a parallel, because they haven't even built that radio system yet. But we already have regionalized the dispatch, so we're using what we already had, they kind of took over on it, but we're gonna build to it. But the process, I think, the bidding part for the radios and the radio system and equipment that they needed to buy already to start up the system and start up the service, they already did. So I think that might be a good guide for us too, just in the background with IMAs, right? Cause
Yeah, that would help.
I think it would be a good one.
The town has requirements for, I don't know, a certain amount of insurance to carry and liability that every town's gonna be slightly different, so we could get that criteria right out of it.
Okay. So what's gonna be our team? You're on it?
Yeah. How many is he looking for?
Well, I was gonna take a look at that right now. Let's make sure we don't mess up.
Are you on the team?
Yeah, I'd offer, but I'm gonna hold you guys back if I jump in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So
You have 3 to 4 people tops.
Yeah,
so
I'll jump in there.
I'm in.
Johnson, Crowley, Chris Boyd. Perfect. And then, and as soon as we have the stuff from Whip City, I'll get it to you, and then you guys can take a look, and then, we'll meet, I'll schedule another meeting for a couple of weeks from now for the whole group, so that we can come back and check in and see what, if anything you need further. Feel free to reach out to Mr. Sullivan as well, to, or Carl in Town Hall as well, or through myself. Just again, with 3 to 4, I think you're fine. And then, it's kind of a working group to report back to this board.
Yeah, that would be good, because then.
So we should try to meet prior to the next meeting?
Let me get the stuff from Mr. Sullivan, and then, so that you guys have something to gander at, and then you already have the one from, I think you had West Side and the 2 towns from out west of here. So as just a starting point, and then go from there. Like I said, I don't think, and Mr. Johnson said it best, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. They have this with other communities. I think ours is gonna have a little uniqueness to it, but the general framework's gonna be right there. And I'll get you the IMA from dispatch.
I don't know if you wanted to have one other person look at it once you got something drafted. I don't think I had the time to commit to drafting it, but if you want another set of eyes before it comes to the rest of the committee,
I
can
think
do
that
that.
would be good, especially if we segment it, let's say we break it down into, a half a dozen pieces for each contract, and just send what's done to the rest of the committee to see if there's any other comments. I don't know if that's gonna make it too long in the tooth to do that, but, we can,
So-
once we get rolling, I think we can figure out, the best way to.
And don't fret, because anything that we, whatever you guys come up with, it all rolls through the town attorney anyway, and he's gonna have
Which
his,
is, so. it won't get
his set of eyes on it,
hung up
right? So.
the,
So I guess that was my next question, is that, who else do we need to I could see spending a lot of time doing something and then having the town administrator or town council, saying, no, 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 no. Is it so? I mean, is there anything out there that we could use as kind of parameters for what the town does or does not accept?
I think you should come back to the committee as a group. If you get to a point where you really think that there's something that's debatable, and then we can meet and discuss it. Because, I mean, like I said, this is the first for us, right? We can look at I don't think there's gonna be anything off the rails from, say, what West Springfield or any of the other towns have done. And, I remember looking at the IMA from the dispatch. Westfield, I think they call it their solicitor. They had a bunch of red lines to it. Our attorney had a bunch of red lines to it. And finally, we just put the solicitor and the lawyer in a room and said, one of you come out standing with a final document, please. It was all semantics. It wasn't changing terms therein. It was putting it to form.
That's what it is. That's
Yeah.
it. That-
So, but I think that's what we really have to do. I think we're not gonna have, I don't think there's gonna be I don't think you have a huge risk of writing an agreement or, an outline of an agreement that the attorney's gonna go, you absolutely can't do that, or that's, give them an outline. You don't have to give them a legal contract. Give them an outline, let them put it to form for an agreement, or take an existing one and mark it up and let them put it to form for an agreement. And then, it comes back to us and then goes over to the select board to send it.
Right. At the end of the day, none of us are lawyers. So that's what they get paid to do. So
And they do.
yes,
And
they do.
Okay,
Okay.
So can I ask a question in regards to the next meeting? Can that be set up like at a 4 o'clock time frame in the afternoon, or is the group of 3 not able to meet until after work?
I don't get into Southwick till close to 5.
Yeah, I'm closer
Get out
to
about-
5:30.
Get out about 4:30-ish.
Okay. Okay. Then that's the answer. That's fine. I just want to know, so our team will probably, it will be our general manager. We'll have somebody from operations, we'll have somebody from engineering and myself. And then we'll be like you, we have people on the backside that will be putting in input, but I think when you see the example I send you, you'll find out, 80% of it is boilerplate legal language. And the 20% that really changes from town to town is what you guys are gonna wanna sink your teeth into and stuff, but it's more how many poles there are, how many streets there are, what's your mileage, what's overhead, what's underground. What is Eversource gonna have to touch, what is Verizon gonna have to touch, all those things, so. And most of that, again, is fill in the blank, it's just making it Southwick's contract as opposed to, West Springfield's.
Brian, if you, as you're putting together that example for us to start working with, could you have some take some input from other contracts you've had with towns where they don't build it 100% in a short time frame? Probably something similar to how Westfield built your own, where you did certain fiber serving areas, and then as subscribers came in, you'd start construction in other areas and kind of work everything in tandem, but not do a complete 100% build.
Yep.
In a short time.
We can do it, basically, so you build it as you grow.
Yes.
Type
something
of
like-
scenario where you probably won't need, the days of having the pilot areas are kind of over because everyone has seen it working now. But West Side's take and some of the other towns take are, the most populated areas are where you're gonna wanna start because that's the best return on investment.
Yeah,
where-
I agree.
Stuff like that, or, we already have the fiber throughout the, town office buildings, police, fire, town hall. Is that the area where we wanna go? Because we can build off that. And then I know you mentioned it in the last meeting a couple times, there's 7 or 8 neighborhoods where Westfield rolls into exactly where Southwick is, and it will be easy, easy to either do undergrounds or the fiber. So I think what you're asking, you actually will get that in the contract. It'll be up to you to, systematically see where you want to start and where you want to go next. And that's logical. That's every town does it that way. I mean, there's no sense building on the outskirts, because to get the fiber to the outskirts, you got to go through all the populated neighborhoods. So start lining those up with the what's closest to your hut, type of scenario. So the answer to that is yes.
Okay,
I think it's gonna look like a pie. Or almost a circle where you start and then you go out and you'll have segments of it from around to try to pick up the rest of town.
yeah, we'll get an
Southwick
idea
odd shape.
from the design and survey what areas are gonna be the most expensive. They could have great density, but maybe it's all underground.
Right. Right.
Well,
What Westfield did when we first started, we did do a pilot back, 7 years ago. We did the pilot, it worked, but that from there on, we actually had people, the neighbors involved on the internet, and the GM today was one of those people in his neighborhood that went door to door and knocked on people and said, go on the internet, say you want this, and let's get this place lit up. So obviously in your area, it would be, again, the biggest return on investment is those people that absolutely are committed to going to Southwick Fiber and ready to go the day they can get service. And it just makes sense that that's where you're going to build it to.
Right, but I also think the design is gonna almost show you what those, I think, what do you call them, fiber hoods, right?
Yep.
You may end up with 5 or 6 in our town. And then, you've got obviously the denser ones are the ones closest to where we already have the fiber already, or closest to our hut, and then go out. But then the other ones could be much more of a competitive deal by showing interest or what have you.
Yep.
But once you identify what those are, even Whip City had that for years before they built out, they had identified what those neighborhoods looked like and what groups would stay together and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll want that. We're gonna find out the condo associations in town, they're separate, so there'll be separate agreements.
Yep.
Between the town and them, so they probably wouldn't be part of an initial build only because of, getting that agreement in place, and it's another level of negotiation.
Yep. Multi-dwelling units, and that's what those are. So those are expensive to do, but if you build it and they all come, then it's a great thing, but
Right.
Yeah.
it's expensive to get it there initially. Just to let you know, Mr. Chairman, you have 18 FSAs in Southwick. On first look anyways, I mean, that's just first blush, but you basically have 18 to cover the whole town, which is a good size. I mean, you're right up there with the bigger hill towns. And you have a pond and water and everything in the middle too, so you got some difficult areas, but you are densely populated in others, so it's exactly looking like, a lot of the other ones that we've done.
So how is that determined? Is there a certain number of subscribers you're looking to have in each area?
Yeah, that'll be based on the applications that go to Eversource in the polls. So you want to break it down. I shouldn't quote this, but I think it's like roughly 200 per application. So you're doing your FSAs based on those applications. That number may have changed, so don't quote me on it, but it's close to that as far as what Eversource and Verizon and the national grids of the world use as their application process.
That's what I've heard.
And that's a lot of the field services that I was talking about with the engineering and design and field services. We literally put people in the streets looking at polls, getting the data from the polls and what's going to be in the build, what's not going to be in the build, things like that. So that's what takes a lot of time.
As far as the town's concerned, how long of a time frame are you looking to take to build out?
Don't know.
Because that might be important to the contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to kind of I don't think we've actually set that out. I mean, I like to go at my guiding light on this whole thing has been more financial than anything else, is that I don't want to get out in front of our skis monetarily,
Right.
but, you've got a good amount of seed money, and then you're gonna have to figure out how, I think we're gonna have a greater discussion with the select board, and you have to go back to town meeting for any additional borrowing authorization beyond the $3 million that we have, so.
Obviously, if we
that's the
take 10
process.
years to build it out, that's plenty of time to build up revenue for the last service areas.
Right,
But we probably don't want to take.
yeah,
10
no,
years
I
to build it
agree,
out.
and, but I don't think we wanna go and, we'll see the number, but, I don't wanna go borrow $9 million and say, okay, let's build this thing in 60 days.
Right.
First of all, that's not reasonable. Secondly, it's financially too risky. But I think that's really what we have to be very, as a committee, and then back to the select board, because we're responsible to town meeting and the taxpayers of the town of Southwick, that we don't leave them on the hook for any money at the end of this.
So what do we have available right now? Was there 900,000 in ARPA?
Plus, we have a borrowing authorization approved for $3 million.
Okay.
And we haven't borrowed any money, obviously. And I think we've encumbered some of the $900,000, all of it towards this endeavor. Like, there were some legal bills with the MLP, there was some bonding premiums for the polls and, and I don't have an accounting in front of me right now of what it is, but it's some money, but it's not 800 of the $900,000. I don't think it's $100,000 yet. So we'll just have to get that, I can get you that number. But the idea was that $1 million is kind of a good start, right? As far as getting the contract started for the design, the poll hearings, and all that other stuff. And then, the $3 million plus some of the 900 will get us to, first stage construction, I think. But we'll get a better idea.
Should, yeah, depending on make-ready costs, and of course, we'll get the estimates back, and then that's gonna determine some of the areas that we want to start building.
Right,
So ideally, the area that is, has great density, little make-ready, and, lower construction costs, that's gonna be the sweet spot right there to start.
What about the grant application? Is that ready to go for March?
that's my second topic. The second topic was also to put together a smaller group as well to kind of look at some of these grants. We do want to get that community compact grant going, but I think we're gonna need some help from Whip City on that, because they've done it before. So they kind of know the ropes on how to apply and what you need in your application from that. So kind of how I wanted to leave that tonight. I don't think we're ready to, if anyone wants to volunteer to be on that group, that's great.
Cause that opens up, if I remember correctly, in March, correct?
Yes, I think it opens in March, but it's March to August or something, or I'll have to check. Take a note.
Yeah, if we're around the March timeframe, I could volunteer for that. I'll be out of the weeds and what I'm buried in now by then, so.
Yeah, I'm looking at just the initial estimate of costs, and to make ready, if it was all done and paid for before any other work was done, that's about 2,400, including all the poll fees and licensing. So let's hope it's gonna be a lot less than that. But it's a gauge to see how it starts.
By 2,400, you meant 2.4 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Three more. Sorry about that. Three more.
No, leave those zeros off. Come on now.
by the way, I was mistaken. So before anybody gets, it's March 11th and closes on April 12th.
Okay.
So there's about a 1-month window to fill out the application. And I will send an email to the CAO, because apparently there was a link included in the fiscal year 24 Community Compact kickoff letter from the Lieutenant Governor, emailed in August to your community's chief municipal executive. which is either the select board chair or town manager. I was not the chair in August of 2023. Yes, I was, and I certainly did not receive it. So it must mean that Carl has it. So I don't want to hang us up on everyone gets all together to get it in, and then we don't have the link. Okay. Mr. Sullivan, you partnered with some of your partners on submission of community compact grant applications?
Yeah, there's a few of the towns, especially a couple of different clusters of towns that applied and received those funds. There are, I know just in the governor's budget that just went through, the compact money was there, and there's another pot of money too. So, you know, advice is to we'll keep applying for everything, and you know, the worst thing that can happen is they say no.
Exactly. Yeah, there was it's north of $1 billion bond bill for
Yeah,
overall IT, not just Muni Fiber, but Muni Fiber was mentioned in it to continue to support
Yeah.
municipal fiber build out in the Commonwealth. So
yes.
one asterisk around that though. With any bond bill, it's so easy to pass a bond bill because that actually doesn't spend or appropriate any money. Now you got to get the legislature to actually pull the bond bill off the shelf and actually fund it.
That's the big step.
Oh yeah, we had $1 million bond bill for dredging on Congamon,
Mhm.
sat there for years.
Okay.
It was authorized, but no one would actually go and execute and borrow the money and bond out the money that they needed to do the project. Then it's at least a decade. I'm not picking on the late guy. It is an example of just because it's in a bond bill, that means absolutely zero
Money's
until
not
you they actually go and execute the law that borrows the money and fulfills the promise of what the legislation intended. So,
Well, there's typically two kinds of legislation that need to be in place before anything happens. One is the authorization bill, and the other one is the appropriation bill.
correct.
And classically, legislators will vote for the authorization and not vote for the appropriation. And they can
Correct.
always say, you know, that, well, I voted for blah, 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 blah. But
Makes a
most
lot-
folks don't
Yeah.
think about the fact that we need two together. And you can vote for the author, you need to vote for the both of them. Not
That's
ju-
correct.
Not just one.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Johnson. And I would even say that, you know, getting something in a bond bill is not, you know, halfway there. That's like 10%. But anyway, so anyone who wants to be on that, besides Ian, that wants to be on the grant applying group, and by the way, and I'm not stopping anybody from that wants to step up and apply for other grants or finds out about other grants. I know Ms. Quinlan had done a good job in reporting back a bunch of other federal grants that were available. And the other thing we should reach out through our legislative delegation is there's an entire office in the Commonwealth now that's dedicated to steering federal money from various programs down to the state level. Almost like they're not quite community development block grant type programs, but the office is focused on taking any federal programs and making sure that Massachusetts is getting an appropriate or outsized share of that money, and then making sure it gets steered and used in actual, either at the state or local level. So that was part of the current governor's plan. I mean, the community compact grants are great. That came in with the Baker administration. I think they've been a great partnership. And this, you know, if there's federal money out there, we should be making sure that, you know, we make it available to us if it's
Absolutely.
possible. But, so we'll continue on that discussion. Any other, I don't think I took public comment at the beginning of the meeting.
Doug, I have a quick question.
Oh, absolutely.
That link that was sent to the town back in August, I know we've talked about that before, But is it the expectation that like someone in town government would actually fill out that paperwork?
Absolutely. But what it's helpful is to have that link is to get it so that you can
Right.
see what's in it.
Exactly.
And then make sure you have the data to complete it, because I've done a couple of the community compact grants before with the town accountant, and you can't start and stop. You have one session to sit down and fill out the whole thing and click submit. So it's better to take it literally old school, print it off, write down what you need, write up everything in a Word document, and then a week before you cut the whole thing and paste it into your
Yeah.
grant
Do it in
application
one
and be done with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you can get me and anybody else who's gonna work with me on that,
Yep.
any info we'll need for that, so that we can be prepped to be able to do that and do that in a hurry.
Yep. And town staff will be helpful with that because we've done, like I said, we've done a few of these community compacts applications. So we kind of know the drill, the actual submission of same.
Okay.
Any other public comments before we, or anything from the board before we adjourn tonight?
Yes. If I could make us a request. Is that on the agendas that go out? Yeah, I think it's important for. Like for discussion topics, it says on tonight's meeting, it says discuss IMA with WG&E. So this is a public record of what the agenda is, and no one knows what the hell the initials mean.
You know,
If we're
Yeah.
going to use acronyms, we should spell them out.
and there's been, there's a very nice lady who came to the select board meetings and pointed it out to me. And for the last year, I've been extremely deliberate when we're in a select board meeting to kind of spell everything out. And you're absolutely right. Point taken, will be corrected going forward. To be honest with you, we rushed this one. The person who normally puts the agendas was out and we were facing the holiday on Monday, so we were booking to get this thing in. But you're absolutely right. And I will make sure that we spell out all our acronyms, because we all know what they are, but not everybody else does. You're 100% right.
Okay.
Anything else
No. Oh, nothing for me. Nope.
on Zoom?
I'm all good.
I'm all set.
I'm all
I'd
set.
entertain the motion to adjourn then.
Second,
Oh, so Ryan made the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
There you go. Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
folks.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.